excited to introduce Jacalin Ding. She is a seasoned product design leader and business strategist with over 15 years of experience. She's worked globally with startups and enterprises, helping to raise millions in funding, and has coached designers from companies like Google, DoorDash, and LinkedIn. Jacalin's courses have empowered over 10,000 creative professionals to connect design with business success. And most recently, she helped us create our strategic business acumen for designers course at Design Lab. I was just telling Jacalin before the event started how excited I was for her talk because, as part of our business, we talk to design leaders all the time about what skills they really look for in folks they're hiring and in their team. And over, we hear the same thing. It's about, kind of understanding the business, going beyond design, influencing stakeholders, selling, across departments. And I think that very much aligns both with Jacalin's talk today as well as the course she created. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen and I will reshare later after Jacalin's talk. But I will hand it over to you, Jacalin.
Thank you so much, Cam. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Super stoked for you taking the time to join in. And I'm going to talk about today's topic is about when business and design gets married, hooked up, they make magics. And so I'll go in before everyone probably don't know who I am just yet. So I'm going to do a little bit intro. My name is Jacalin. And I have been in design, Cam said 15 years, that's very generous. And I used to use the 15 years for many years. And I was like, okay, I got to be realistic now. It's 18 years, okay? It's a long time. I'm kind of old, yes. But here, I actually have been a born and bred designer for more than, for every single category of design. You can name it, graphic designer, advertising, art directions. And then I transitioned into product designer maybe when the second generation of iPhone came out. I think many people was like, oh my God, user experience, what is it? Let's start getting into it. And that is where I started my product design journey. And I never looked back. And however, I've also I run two business and I've worked with many startup founders, scaled up founders right next to them and helped them build teams and raise fundings. Throughout this experience, what I have realized is that there are so many superpowers within every single designer and they just don't know it yet. So today I want to reveal some of the superpower you can actually tap into by just knowing the foundation of business. So right now, turn into my courses. I've been teaching since 2018, actually. I've ran my business for 7 years. And during this time, I've spent like hundreds and thousands of dollars to learn all sorts of business topics. And I joined incubator, I joined MBA groups. And finally, I've consolidated, the golden gems that you don't actually need to know every single aspect of business, but you just need to know what it's going to help you to get to your next goal. And to me, it was the best experience ever. And I'll take you through a little story. It was not all glories. Once upon a time, I think it was about 6 years into my career. And back in the day, I don't know how many of you can actually resonate with this. Designers often, this is before pandemic, right? Designers often are hanging out in the same group in the dark. We work in a dark room for some reason. And at the time I was working at an agency. If any one of you worked at an agency, you'll probably know. You get told, you send off this letter. This design. You're like, oh my God, look at this design. Send it off to the client. And you just sit there and wait until one day, you receive the feedback from the client, and then the feedback is like, hey, Jack, please change the color to red, please. Thank you very much. And at that point, I realized, maybe that's not what I want to do. It's a little bit too much for me. Like, I feel like I was sitting there being a designer, but being told what to do, it's just undervaluing my own value, right? And I feel like this century-old problem, it still exists today. Luckily, design has already progressed so much since 10 years ago, and now we're doing all this double diamond progress and user research and data to back up our design decision. However, these century-old problems still exist, and that is why that a lot of the designers' ideas get killed. And many times we come up with great ideas, it doesn't get through to the next stage. So I find it super hard to break through. And I had like a moment of going, I don't want to just stay here and doing what this is. I don't want to spend every single day of my life trying to get promoted to a lead level, but I don't know. And also I feel like a lot of design leaders also don't really know what does it mean to get to a lead level on the bigger scale. Every single company is different. And it was really hard to get buy-in as well. A lot of the ideas, I wasn't sure if I was just like throwing spaghettis on the wall and hoping that someone would pick it up. And most importantly, I know I could do strategy work. I don't know why I think that, because maybe because since I was young, I used to run a small business since I was little. So I feel like I can think strategically, but somehow this job description and all of this expectation from the different company I was in at the time somehow just boxed me into what I was only supposed to do, to deliver tools. So I don't know if any one of you feels like this sometimes. Type in the chat if this feels like sometimes this is what you do every single day. You just produce and produce and produce. It's not fun, right? So I had to make the call. I quit. I decided to quit. And can anyone tell me that you're actually seeing my screen?
We see your screen. I see your screen.
Is my screen the black screen, or?
It fades in and out from the, your background that has the logos.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't look like it's actually working. Sorry, everyone just give me one moment. Because I feel like it didn't work. I need to share my screen again. One moment. Yeah, so this didn't really work for me. Share screen. Okay. This is it. Let's do this. There we go. Sorry about the camera issue. So yeah, so this is why I decided to quit. Oh, sorry. Is that back to the other screen again, or am I sharing screen?
No, because you're sharing, I see the I quit.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so, and what I had enough, basically. I had to change my lane, and I feel like it's the time for me to discover who I really was. So I decided to start my own business, basically transitioning from getting paid to do everyday job to basically running a startup, which is jumping off the high-rise building and assembling an airplane on the way down. That's basically the perfect explanation of running a business as a solo person. But I built it up. I built it to a multi-six-figure business, and it was a fashion label. Crazy. And during this time, I also worked with a lot of founders next to them and with their team, their design team as well. And I realized that a lot of the designers fail to consider the holistic level of business. And that is why constantly the decisions that they're making and the proposal that they're putting out there has been a little bit narrow-minded. So I wanted to say this is that building a business or being a business owner has actually changed everything I thought I knew about design. And I think this is my belief, and this is why I want to do what I do, is that we need to develop designers for how they think, not what they produce. Because let's be real, traditional design education is broken, right? Boot camps and uni, yes, it's important that they teach you the foundation, but the cookie cutter case studies without the deeper thoughts into how design actually brought value into every single different business is only going to serve so much. But junior designers, I feel for you. Sometimes it takes few years to do the junior hands-on work before you even feel like, oh my God, maybe this is not enough. Maybe I need to start seeking somewhere. And a lot of times designers look to their company to seek advice on how to develop their business skills, but the company, they just can't teach you those things. So we ended up with this dilemma. Stakeholders don't value design, but designers don't understand the business needs. I don't have time. I don't have time to teach them. So something needs to happen. These two people need to talk, right? So let's be the bigger person. Let's learn to understand our stakeholder first. How about that? And there's one thing you can do. Every single designer I've worked with or interview, they all tell me that I have a superpower, and my superpower is empathy. All right, I've heard it many times, but how about we take some of those empathy and put it into understanding our business partner? Understanding what the business actually needs. What does it mean? Okay, I want you to imagine all of these stars in the sky, right? This is basically how many decisions a founder or a senior business partner need to make decision every single day. Every single business is actually a dot in a giant competitive landscape. So they watch out for other players in a similar space who might be competing for the same product industry as well, providing the same offering. So competition is constantly there. So what these business partners need to do is they need to consider all sorts of elements, legal, competitive landscape, sales progress, growth levers, all of them. But for us designers, if we don't expand our understanding, what happens is that designers, on the other hand, spend so much of our time hanging out in this design corner. So of course, our depth of field is slightly narrower compared to our business partners, a lot. And the biggest lie, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it is true. The biggest lie we've been told is that UX design is the center of everything. Well, I'm going to tell you it's not. It's not the center of everything. This is actually designer's comfort zone. And you know what they say about comfort zone? Comfort zone is the biggest killer to your growth. So let's train our mind to think outside of design and stop letting this fear blocking you. The common blockers designers constantly telling ourselves is business is too complex. Oh my God, numbers are scary. It looks like there's a lot of number I need to learn. They avoid it because they're scared of it. They avoid it, And the last one is like, I don't have time. I need to catch up all these weekly updates from Figma is already keeping me on the toes. Where do I find time? Well, you know what? There are the people who keep doing whatever they do every single day and they just stay there, or the type of people who go, I'm going to make time and I'm going to change the way I'm going to talk about design. Perhaps designers should give themselves the opportunity to learn how to integrate the business language into your workflow. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter if you're changing a button, changing the color to the button, to design system, which is the obvious one, right? So how does design decisions driven growth levers? That's important. And how does it impact the churn? What does it mean for the business in the long run? Not just next year, this year, which is, I think, a lot of product teams stay within this year mindset. But a strategic designer think 5 years, 10 years, and the future of what this business is creating to the human behavior in the long run. So today I've got 3 key topics that I want to talk about. The first one is we want to talk about what business care about. It's a very short session, so I'm going to just briefly talk about this. The second topic we're going to talk about is what does value mean to a business? Because if you don't understand what value means to a different person, you're never going to persuade them. The third thing we're going to talk about, which is one of the most important things I cover in this course, how to connect design to business. Right, let's look at what business care about. Business care about this. Every single business, I don't care if you're government, you're non-profit, profit, startup, scale up, mature company, we need to make profits, right? It's reality, because without that, we don't have a job. No one has a job. And so in order to make profit, there's two growth levers. I'm keeping this super simple for now. We dive deeper in the course. Business need to make value. Where does revenue comes from? Revenue comes from sales revenues, obviously, maybe subscription model, maybe different type of business model. Maybe profit means more revenue and less cost, right? So cost, what does that mean? Fixed cost. If anyone knows what fixed cost mean, type it in the chat. If you know what fixed cost means, fixed cost. The same amount of money that goes out, yes, same amount of money that goes out every single month, right? So the money that's paying utility, paying for the office rent, paying for their salaries. There is variable cost. This cost is fun because you can adjust it. For example, sales acquisition costs, marketing costs, product investment costs, tools, all of these things build up to the operational side of things that we need to take care of. So if you understand exactly how revenues are being made, it's much easier for you to go, hey, I can make an impact over there. I can make an impact on the reducing cost side. We're going to expand a little bit more on this later. But this is the thing. Stop thinking about business is just like business. It's actually just like human. Every single business is like living a stage of its life, right? So we have a startup which focus on, they need to have low sales at the moment. So what they really need to focus on is quick iteration, quickly gain market share and prove product market fit. Once the company gets into the growth stage, they are scaling. They found a product market fit. They're scaling now. At this point, they probably already gained a lot of fundings. They need to think about how they use the money correctly. So scale is the key. So you want to watch what type of design proposal that you put out there. Okay, now we're progressing into the mature company, which mature means, they are probably enterprise level. It's consistency. It's operational efficiency. We want to watch out for churn rates, and maybe because they're already mature in one area, they might want to expand to another area. So that is the kind of consideration you want to put, because now I guarantee once you learn the different life stage of different business, you're going to be able to look back to your projects and go, ooh, now I understand why they didn't approve me for that particular project at that time. Decline stage doesn't necessarily mean the business is running out of business. Well, that could be the one case, but another case means it's probably sold to another bigger companies, right? So at this time, that means they don't really have cost to invest in new ideas. This is where you need to help out to package up the process, productize it. So I've made this huge mistake before in my career, and I don't want anyone else to make it. Okay, low startup, for example, at one time, it's low budget and it is pre-product market fit. They don't know what sticks yet. They don't really have any profit at all. So at this time, the key is time to market, right? So designers, if you are putting out massive ideal solution proposal, oh my God, we could do this, we could do that, let's build a design system. These things are not going to work for a startup environment. They don't need it. And they might be very nice and tell you, great, Susan, you're doing great. We love your work. And we'll look at it down the road when we have more money. That's a nice way to put it. But the not nice way is like, we don't have money to pay for this. I don't know why you're spending time doing it. Okay. So if your business is profit focused, they obviously don't have any appetite to experiment new ideas. So I've made a mistake of check out this brand new customized design. It's completely different to our competitors and it's going to set us different. Well, that's not a good enough argument. So you want to know not just the stage of the business, but what kind of financial focus that they're on at the moment. If you do that, you wouldn't end up with this, right? Look at all these new ideas that we will never use. Proposing ideas that doesn't align with what the business needs is absolutely a waste of your creative energy. And worse, this is worse, it's that it leads to lost trust. from your business partners in the long run. Imagine you just come up with ideas that doesn't suit. They're good ideas, but it just doesn't suit the person. Over and over again, over time, they're going to be like, well, Susan, I'm not quite sure. It's been a year and you come up with a great idea. I love your enthusiasm, but yeah, maybe you just need to understand business a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to the second topic. We need to understand what value means to different business partners. So on the simplest level, let's say these words, innovation, disruption, impact, results, to designers, that probably mean, oh, we're going to create new behavior. How about a new design pattern, imagination, creativity? But for companies, that means financial runways. We need to have high ROIs and market domination. Maybe we spend zero money on customer acquisition cost. This is important for designers now, because then you can shift the way you put forward your design proposal to get more impact. And when the designers think what design is, I'm sure everyone is like, oh, yeah, we do all of this. And then once every single once a blue moon, we present our idea, we'll be like, oh, here's our user research. We interview 5 people, and here's the prototype, and here's how they interacted, and we did a usability testing. All of these slangs, business partners don't care. But this is not what they only care about, but this is only what they think what design is, right? So I think we need to reduce the amount of use for our design slangs and start to use our language slightly different, because they don't value any of this. They don't need to learn what architecture means, information architecture means. You need to know that, but you need to translate it in a way that they understand. So you don't end up with conversations like this. We should build a design system. It will only take 3 months and 2 engineers. Sorry, we don't have time for that. I am sure every single designer have been through this kind of situation before. You suggest something, they said no, you're like, oh my God, it's so disencouraging. And it's just going into the loop and loop again. Let's stop from happening. So this is one of the key things. It's reality, but it's key. So next time when you come up with something or think about something that you want to do, step back and think a little bit broader, and ask yourself, are you helping your company make money or save money? How do you do that? Look for business levers to align your design to. So for example, in terms of making money, we could potentially increase their retention. Think about ideas that increase user growth. Maybe increase user growth without spending too much additional marketing money. Or how do we convert something quickly? Increase daily active user, increase the time that they spend on the product. How do we save money? Maybe it's maintaining the cost, that's spending on the tools, maintaining the cost, human cost, reduce training time, reduce support ticket, and maybe you also create internal system to reduce the amount of time our employees used to deliver whatever they need to deliver. And if you can do that, you will be able to come up with more alignment to your business partner's goals. For example, remove account lock-in step at the checkout page could potentially increase total sales by 20%, and that could equivalent to $30,000 a month. And so this is it, right? The difference between what I used to talk about design and now is very different now. So I craft every single one of my business proposals depending on who's listening to and depending on what I know they are going to achieve. It made it so much easier because now I've been through 7 years in business and coming up thinking about, wow, there is actually so much designer can tap into. You see, if we don't connect business outcome to design, it cheapens the design, right? Apple, absolutely, this iMac. Let's pay attention to this number. We all know that this iMac changed Apple, rescued them from being bankrupt. But this number here is not just about money. It's not just about how much revenue we help the company. Because on the top of the revenue, it's about long-term impact. This particular number, 50% of first-time computer users purchase this computer. Now, if you let that statistic sink in on how many people in the world actually make this computer their first computer. This statistic is literally life-changing for many. So when design connects to business and technology in harmony, it absolutely creates magic. It's absolutely beyond money because this thing is lifelong impact for the brand vision it sets in. So in the course, we don't talk about just strategy. We don't talk about just design associated with business numbers, but we talked about how to think about the business vision and so that you can connect the dots in the long run. So there's no surprise that after this Mac, Apple decided to embrace its unique value, which is premium design, user experience, and innovation. So I want to ask you is, did you think design actually achieved this alone? No, right? If it's a good design and no one knows about it, is it still a good design? No. If it's a good design and no one wants to pay for it, is it still a good design? No. So we wanted to, it's almost mandatory, in my opinion, for designers to expand our knowledge base and start being curious about what's outside of design, what's all in these different departments, what do they do? So I wanted to bring you this little framework that I've come up with, the design to business mapping. That I've been using this exact format for years to consistently check in with my design decisions. And it looks something like this, right? We've redesigned the account page, which makes it easier to navigate from A to B for the users. For the product level, it adds faster time to value. And because we've done a lot of strategic thinking about differentiating our product from our competitors, it helps us create market differentiation. And then, because of this, more users are joining the platform, we hence increase user acquisition and increase the retention. Finally, in the long term vision, this has increased brand value and trust from our customer and has changed human behavior in the long run. So you could slowly think about your project right now, your project in the past, and think about what are the missing pieces that you have not incorporated into your argument and be able to dive deeper into it. Of course, in the course, we dive deeper into what long-term success means, what business revenue means, how to become a thinker for strategic differentiations, and then finally, how to connect design back to all of these bigger goals out there. So for me, once I have understood this, it's absolutely a game changer for me. And I think back to, when I was 6 years into my journey or early career, at the time when I stuck in that dark room, right? This is very vulnerable. I actually thought I was a design production machine. I thought I do not want to continue doing this until I was 50 years old. That's not going to happen. Something has to change. And they also created this whole career bottleneck. I didn't know where to go because if you are stuck in an environment that doesn't allow you to also explore this idea, it's not going to help as well. It was up to a point I actually didn't know where I belong. It probably happens to some of you right now. But this 7 years or more experience has transitioned, and now I've packaged up all of this knowledge to teach like thousands of designers out there, and I could see the impact. Company are paying high fees for me to facilitate. I never thought this was possible. It's crazy. But I also surprised that every single time I ran a course or did a workshop, I could see designers just instantly make that connection. They're like, oh my God, just makes so much more sense. I can't believe I didn't know about this like many years ago. Imagine the impact that you could have made if you know this sooner. So with your permission, I'm going to cover a little bit of what's covered in the course. Just brief line. This course I've created covers some of the most foundational knowledge. And some of you guys think, well, foundational knowledge, is it too basic? Guess what? Foundational knowledge is the baseline for every single most successful people in the world because they repeat this over and over and over again. We talk about understanding business functions, how each function works together in harmony, how design blends into this function, how to grow, how do they work together to grow the company. We talked about business pivots. We talk about every single business and every single time. They can't just become stale. They need to think about how they win the competition. So they pivot all the time. It could be changing business model. It could be expanding to a new market. We need to understand how to blend into that wave as one of the most valuable business partner. Because if you can do that, you become influential. Not everybody knows or wants to do that. And if you are going to be that person to learn the hard yard about business, you can help to become more influential. Now, there are lots of framework in this course, also developing you designer to think how to become a strategic player. Next time, if you're sitting on a table and be able to discuss the different thinking touch points, if the company is talking about strategic alignments. And most importantly, finally, connecting design to business outcomes. And that is I talked about stakeholder management a little bit and talk about how you put stories together as well. So I've spent the last 4 years basically developing this course content and continuing to refine this to the best form possible. And the other day, one of the students said to me, I didn't even think learning business could be this much fun. And that is exactly what I wanted to achieve, basically. There are so many boring business courses out there, but we are designers, we're visual learners. I want to create something that's easy to learn, fun to learn. And it is my goal to make it fun for everybody. So reading all this testimonial from all over the world, I get to witness the complete transformation because I've been working with these students, every single one of this, on a close level. And you see, I believe that none of us here are just a designer, right? And I think if you're thinking, I'm going to pick up this course and I just want to learn some business and be able to just put together a convincing proposal next time for my company, you're thinking too narrow. Learning business isn't just about to convince your stakeholders right now about your idea. That's just the first step, first iteration of it. It's about building a whole another level of superpower you never know that you had. And maybe one day you decided to start trying a new business, start hiring people, start building a team. At that point, you can really utilize this foundational knowledge to help you succeed. So I want to say is that don't let another year goes by and you still stuck doing the same thing. Let's be that influential person that takes one hard yard than everyone else, right? Step out of our comfort zone, step out of our design bubble. And it's going to make you realize you have so much more to offer. And it's probably beyond wherever you're working at right now. I think it's going to be incredible. So I hope to see you at the course. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. Sorry for the presentation glitch earlier.
Thanks so much, Jacalin. And I'm going to ask a few follow-up questions. Definitely, if you have any questions for Jacalin, there's a questions tab. I think there's a couple in there already, but feel free to drop those in. Her and I are going to have a little bit of a conversation. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the course. We actually have a promo as well. And then we're going to take any questions from the audience that you guys have, about this, concept of becoming more business savvy, and speaking the language of business from her experience, creating courses, coaching folks, etc. So feel free to drop those questions in. My first question for you, Jacalin, so Design Lab's been around for about 10 years. We have alumni who've been working for that entire period. We have a lot of folks who are new to working as designers. They've transitioned into the field. Maybe they are in their first job. They've been working for 1 year. At what point in one's career should they start thinking about this? Now, clearly, more is always better, sooner is always better, but perhaps if you're an early career designer, you're still just understanding how to be a designer, right? How do you think about when's the right time to kind of shift your focus to thinking about an organization as opposed to just honing your craft and being good at what you do as an individual contributor?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have worked with so many designers from like different levels when they were taking my course. Now, initially, I believe that midway, transitioning into senior, that's the perfect time to go. Because as you go into senior, you're being expected to deliver things that's a little bit more fully end to end. And when end to end doesn't mean, oh, user research to UI. No, that's not the end to end I mean. It means we need to understand how business make money, how different departments handle all of this kind of thing. How do we work with different departments to make their life easier? And so all of that comes together. I think when people say strategic, that actually means the scope of thinking level that you could perform. So in the junior level, we're performing a lot of like crafty work, right? Figma skills. Midway, you're gonna get super awesome at Figma already. Yeah, and so you're expanding your skill. When you expand into senior, that's when you're expected to contribute it to a little bit about the how the design actually makes business impact. So as a for the senior designers, I don't actually expect them to come up with like just a design initiative without a connection to the business. That would be a little bit of a miss for their career path, I think. So yes, from midway to senior, I think that's the perfect time.
Okay, great. I'm going to combine two questions that I have, which is, hey, we have a course. Obviously, I think our perspective is the best way to learn this stuff is through that course. But let's say someone, for whatever reason, is not ready to commit to that. Where, I think the reason why some designers don't learn this is because it is intimidating. And where do I start? And what are the things that are actually important for me to learn? And what are some actionable steps that they could take? So if somebody, is a designer and they're thinking about this and they want to kind of become more strategic, like where should they start other than, of course, the best way, which is to take our course? But, what are some actionable things that they can do, today, tomorrow, to start on this path of getting this knowledge?
Yes, so I think the first thing is remove that blocker mindset that I've talked about in the presentation. I think the blocker mindset is for a lot of designers box themselves in. And so if you remove that for yourself, you're going to open up a lot more curiosities, right? So when you have the curiosity about how business make money, how strategy work, it's going to push you to look for information that's fitting into that curiosity. So the information that I would suggest everyone look into is, instead of just looking at design news or listening to design related podcasts, think about what other podcasts or what are books that I could read to expand my curiosity. So for example, there's this one of the newsletter that I subscribe to. It's called the Department of Product, which is fantastic. It's one of the only newsletters that I open. We are all being bombarded with so much information. I only have 5 newsletters, and that's the one that I always read all the time. And it gives me the industry level information so that I can see different industries, if it's a fintech or if it's a government agency, if it's a productive tool, what kind of human behavior is changing. These type of newsletter, they hire proper people to do a lot of research, and I love to tap into the research that people has already done. The second thing I would encourage everyone to do is to start listening to stories about founders. I love those kind of interviews. There are a lot of podcasts out there that interviews founders. They ask them how they start the business, what kind of like struggle that they have to go through, what kind of decision making at each point that makes a difference. Now, the more you listen to it, the more you're going to be able to understand what this business partner struggle, what keeps them up at night, and you'll be able to draw the connection a little bit better. I used to mentor a junior designer, right? And because I've been injecting this whole business thinking idea from day one, by year 2, this guy was already fully like talking about business at every single one of his presentation, at every single one of his job interview. One that stands out from the sea of designers that were just talking about deliverables. And so I think even if you're a junior, it's never too early. I mean, it's just another feather to learn to put into your head to level up your influence. So the earlier you learn, make time to learn it. You'll never regret it.
Cool. I could ask you a bunch of other questions, but I want to stay on track. I want to save time for other questions. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. You already talked about the course a little bit, so I will breeze through that so we can get to any other questions you have. Again, if you have questions for Jacalin, feel free to drop those in the questions tab. We'll get to those in just 2 minutes. I'm going to share my screen again really quick and just tell you guys a little bit more of the nuts and bolts about this course that we are offering. I'll also drop just a link to it in the chat in case you're not aware of it yet. There it is. And now I'm going to share my screen. And here we are. This is where we left off. So the course, Strategic Business Acumen for Designers, it's a 4-week course, really targeted to, I think in line with what Jacalin said of where the sweet spot is, mid to senior level designers. The course requires about 6 to 8 hours a week. It's a mix of synchronous and asynchronous learning. So each week you'll review some video lessons featuring Jacalin directly, work on some hands-on projects asynchronously, and then attend a 90-minute live mentor-led peer group session. The mentors themselves have a diverse background, kind of dealing with the intersection of design and business. And so some of the feedback we've gotten, this will be the second cohort that we're running, but some of the feedback we got from the first cohort was just that added layer of the experience of yet another person was a really nice value add. You'll also be invited to attend exclusive live guest lectures led by experts in the design field. Again, the intersection of design and business. I don't know if we have the full slate scheduled. I know we have a design director at Visa. Jacalin will be doing one of the sessions, and I think there will be 1 or 2 others that we're going to add. Each cohort is capped at 30 participants, so there's limited quantity per cohort. The next cohort is launching a week from this Friday, so if you're interested, definitely check it out ASAP and register to secure a spot. I won't talk too much about everything you'll learn. Here's kind of the week by week. You can definitely download a syllabus if you're interested at that link that I just dropped, but I will breeze through this. We had a lot of great feedback from the first cohort. I really love this one. I see my projects differently now, and rather than just accepting design asks at face value, this sounds exactly like what Jacalin was saying. I have meaningful conversations and ask a lot of questions about business goals. This person, really liked the content. They like kind of the fact that it was presented in a way that they remembered what they were and are kind of taking them into their work. I not only feel more confident delivering my ideas, but I learned how to communicate them in a way that will help stakeholders understand. Here's someone at the director level who talked about applying those learnings. So a lot of great feedback. If you're interested, I definitely suggest you save your spot now. And it's January. A lot of people are thinking about building new skills. You can use this code New Year 100 at checkout. You'll save $100. So there's that too. With that said, I want to just get into the questions. And if you have any additional ones, feel free to drop those in the questions tab, which is right next to the chat. I will read these out in case someone can't see these. So the first question is from Max. What are your thoughts about having a business school degree and then adding on, the design lab bootcamp, so UX education? Would that still give me a good view on business strategy, or would there be more to learn in terms of incorporating design into those business strategies?
I think it's all valuable. It's just really depending on how much time and investment you want to put into it. And personally, I think the difference with this particular course is that this course I talked a lot about from the designer's perspective, because I myself is still a designer. So I connect this to business all the time, right? So I infuse a lot of those topics into this particular bootcamp. But if you have the time, absolutely, like business school degree, it's fantastic. It's never going to be a waste of time ever, because it doesn't matter what you do in the future. Let's say you completely change your your profession, and one day you decided to become an electrician, you still need to know this business knowledge, right? So it is absolutely useful for every single aspect of things that you do.
Great. Here's another question. What from Paul? What do you do when a feature or product design conflicts with the business objectives? I know there is
Yeah.
no silver bullet, but how have you convinced stakeholders to buy in with your design proposal?
If it's conflict, I don't put forward. That's basically what I would do. And I think one of the biggest lessons I have learned, and this takes me more than 15 years to get to the conclusion, is a lot of the time, I myself make the mistake is I come up with idea and I'm so convinced that this is a fantastic idea. And I keep jamming it into everything. I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. And I'm keep joining this connection to business outcomes that is not quite aligning, and it's kind of obvious for other people looking at it go, yeah, I think Jacalin is trying to almost like what's that, a confirmation bias a little bit, jamming this idea into it. That's not going to help you, right? So the best way to convince business founder is be on their side and look at the world from their lens. If this is where they're going, if that's the direction where they're going, trying to be a little bit more considered with your design proposal, because if your idea doesn't align with this, then and if you're still trying to jam it, it's not going to serve you well in the long run. So the best way to look at it is I'm helping my best friend to make the decision for their life, and so I want to be a responsible partner. I don't want to just jam whatever that suits my benefit. So the biggest lesson I've actually learned is it's not about getting buy-in. It's never about getting buy-in. It's about helping the business make the best decision. When you can get to that level, it will be obvious that translates into how you put proposals together, and what's obvious into the questions that you ask and the consideration that you make, and that would position you as more of an influential person. It's the long run game.
I love that answer, and just I think to clarify a little, and I'm not a designer. I've worked with a lot of designers. It doesn't mean that you do everything that you're told, or when you say if it conflicts with business objectives, or you do dark patterns to get short-term gains, there can still be conversation, there can still be conflict, and you're still, and tell me if you disagree with this, Jacalin, but what I've found, and you're still in line with business objectives. It's just you're reframing. You're not saying, hey, I don't agree with you. Yeah, I don't agree with the business objective, but rather maybe you're reframing it to say, hey, while that could drive short-term revenue, in the long term, right, that's going to increase churn, which is actually going to cost us more money. And here's why. And here's why I want to do that design that maybe is a little different, that maybe on the surface level seems to conflict with some business objectives, but if at the deeper level maybe is in line and actually superior from a business objective perspective. Does that do you disagree with that, Jacalin, or do you agree?
100%. And I also think, if you just think about your design as just one of those ideas out there, and there's financial ideas, there's sales ideas, and your design is just one of the many ideas in this pile, right? If you're the business founder, what would you do? If you have $1 million on the line, what decision would you make? I'm sure you would probably look at the design proposal a little bit different. So I think how to get there is to really understand what stage the business is, what's the challenge of the founders, or what are they focusing on? Are they focusing on sales marketing? Well, in that case, is product going to be on the second priority? And they make this decision for a good purpose, and everyone should be going towards the same goal. So I would say, let's put our designers' hats away for a second and just think about, if you were running a business, what would you do? That would be a lot, a smarter choice for a long run trust earning strategy.
Great. Love that. A couple more questions. Kelsey, thanks for a great presentation. Do you have any tips for how to estimate business impact in quantitative terms if data is not available? E.g., your example of removing account login setup at checkout page increases total sales by 20%. But, the data is not always available. How do you approach that?
Okay, so the bottom line is you need some sort of data. whatever level of data you need to access. I have a whole, because I used to work with startups and I know that they don't not necessarily have money all the time. So I have a strategy where I put together the very basic level research that I can get in order to back up my design decisions. And that could be just putting together, research tools. Like, for example, if I just use Google Analytics, that's free. Most people can access to that. That doesn't mean that you don't have access to that. Every business basically all have it. So I think data is essential, but it's also important for you to become that strategy thinker. If your team is small and there's not much of a maturity going on, thinking about what kind of minimum data can help me to actually help me do better work. And if you can put together a proposal that this data is going to help me do better work, you can put together the ROI, return on investment proposal to your founder. They will be like, this is the minimum amount of money you spend for me to save this much time. And all business founders, they all think about how long is this going to take me, how much it's going to cost me, and how much I'm going to get out from it. This is basically ROI of everything in life. So if you can think about these 3 questions and construct your proposal, you'll be able to access data first. And once you access data, you can then come up with, it doesn't necessarily need to be money. It could be time, because time is money. For most business, operational, like I said in the slides earlier, operational cost, internal process, onboarding time, all of these represents, they can directly impact a business number. So if you can really get some sort of data in terms of like any sort, you need to make that decision. You're the designer, you need to make that decision. Then we can start looking into how much impact that you can make in terms of figuring out the number side of it. But I normally have Excel sheet. I get all the data and I calculate it on the Excel sheet.
Great. And one last question we have: if you're a design leader who wants to continue to move further into strategy and business leadership and away from design IC work, what kind of roles would you look for as a good transition? And how can this course help prep a former designer or UX strategist for these roles?
Okay, cool. This is fantastic, because that's exactly what I've done. And so I asked myself the question when I was a design leader, because I was still doing IC work and I was managing people, but I was like, but I was never really get involved in the discussion. And that's where I took that massive risk, the leap, right? But when I took the leap, I didn't ask myself that question, which I should have done it. And for you, Brianna, I think you would be benefit if you ask yourself this reflectional question first. Are you willing to remove yourself from craft? Because that's what's going to happen. As you get more strategic, you're going to probably remove yourself away from Figma, a lot of those like actual crafty deliverable topics, into the beginning topics, like the product related topics. So if you are willing to do that, then you this role, that whole strategic role, will be like really suitable for you. And the type of roles that's available out there that you could look for you to transition into more strategic thinking. And now I can see 2025 right now in January, I can already see a lot of new roles related to that type that's coming up on LinkedIn. And those roles would be lead strategic designer. So there is a strategic like in front of the designer part now. It's no longer just product designer, it's strategic designer. And then there's business designer. Business designer, I would assume that they would expect some sort of business related certificates. So if you can actually infuse, some of your experiences with the new business topics and put together case study towards that side, it'll help you to get those roles. And then another third one is growth designers, which I think is fantastic role. Personally, I smile every single time I hear about growth designer, because that's basically me. Usually every single product usually have growth team and retention team, right? So retention team we're looking after the product right now. We need to make sure the churn rate is maintained and it's really useful for the existing customer. But growth team looking at the opportunity out there that you could expand the product, you could get more product opportunity in. You work closely with a strategy person, whoever that is, like head of product, to come up with ideas. And at that point, as a growth designer, yes, you're going to have to involve some number thinking. And so I think thinking about ROIs, thinking about return on investment, you don't have to get really good at it. You just need to have a basic idea on what's the investment and what's the incoming benefit. But you wouldn't be able to know the incoming benefit if you're just thinking about users. Because every single time you make a decision, it might impact many different departments, right? So wouldn't that be nice if you learn how to think business and you have this idea, but this idea actually impacts the sales funnel, it impacts the marketing funnel, it impacts the operational cost and user. Now you have a much more robust argument. So sorry, that's a long-winded answer to your simple question, but bottom line, these are the three roles, and learning business can actually help you to get just the first step into those thinking. And then maybe after that, you can then think about if you have more interest into taking more financial related courses afterwards.
Cool. Well, just like that, the clock just struck to 6 o'clock for me, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. And we finished the last question. So perfect timing. I want to just again say thank you to Jacalin for joining us, having this session, and definitely encourage folks. If this is a stage that you're in your design career, I hear it so many times. I've experienced it so many times working with designers. Like, this is the stuff. This is the knowledge that's going to help you in your career so much, and also probably help alleviate some frustration that you've been feeling. So I definitely encourage you to check out the course, Strategic Business Acumen for Designers, on Design Lab. I dropped the link in the chat, and if you want to save $100, use the code NewYear100. The next cohort starts a week from Friday, so save your seat now. And thanks, Jacalin. A lot of thanks from the folks. Thanks everybody for joining, and we're going to call the event. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Have a good week.
Take care, everybody.